World this week. This is the show where we look back at the top international news stories of the past 7 days. With me, a panel of journalists. Let me introduce them. Régis Le Sommier is Deputy Editorial Director of Paris Match. Sitting next to him is John Vineker. He's a columnist at the International Herald Tribune. Here on my left, Ana Navarro-Pedro is a journalist at the magazine Visão, and Craig Capitas is a journalist, author and regular contributor here at France 24 as well. Good evening to you all. Well, straight then to our first story. And rarely has one city district so captured the world's imagination, but it has been so with Baba Amma in Homs. It's become a symbol of the resistance in Syria. Well, over the past month, we've heard one horror story after another as government forces bombarded the area. Well, the lucky ones got out with their lives. The French journalists Edith Bouvier and William Daniels are now back on French soil after being trapped there for over a week. Others, though, not so lucky. Rebels finally abandoned the town on Thursday, and now the Red Cross says it's being prevented from getting aid to survivors. John, Baba Amma has fallen. Assad's forces are moving in. Does the fact that he's crushed the resistance in Baba Amma mean he's won the conflict more generally?
Well, the President of the United States said Friday afternoon that he's destined to fall, and his days are numbered, and it's going to happen. Maybe Mr. Obama knows something that we don't, and I note with enormous distress that before the Russians and the Chinese got to veto that resolution in the United Nations Security Council, the United States, France, Britain, and friends had removed what was muscle in that resolution. We, the West, took out the line that Assad had to go. We, the West, took out a ban on weapons shipments, and everybody knows who's shipping the weapons, the Russians and Iran. And third, that took out the threat of more sanctions against Syria. Now, how Mr. Obama is so sure after the fall of this symbolic place that it's all going to work out fine for the Syrian people and the West will come out with its face clean, I don't know.
All right, well, EU leaders have been talking tough today. Let's have a quick listen to the British Prime Minister David Cameron and what he had to say about Syria earlier today.
It is vitally important that there's humanitarian access into Homs and elsewhere so that people can get the help they need. But above all, what I think matters is building the evidence and the picture so we hold this criminal regime to account and to make sure that it is held to account for its crimes that it's committing against its people, and that one day, no matter how long it takes, there will be a day of reckoning for this dreadful regime.
Anna, tough words there from David Cameron, talking about the brutality and how we must build a picture so we can punish Assad when all of this is over. But the fact is, there is a risk, isn't there, that he will get away with it, just as his father did 20 years ago.
Yes, we don't know what's going to happen. There was a meeting this week in Paris, the Council of Resistance, who decided to ship weapons to people in Syria who are fighting Assad. This can lead to an escalation, can lead to widespread civil war. Most of Obama is facing an election or re-election. France is on election path as well. Germany will be next year. Who is going to go there from West in order to bring down Assad as the West did in Libya? The question is still very much open.
Craig, what are your thoughts on this?
Assad is following the Russian playbook. Strach. You go in, you hit hard. He doesn't care what anyone thinks, as you rightly said. His father did the same thing. It's smash and burn. He will continue to wipe out the opposition, and there's this wonderful naive belief that social networking and the internet is going to stop all this. Well, to steal a phrase, how many divisions does Google have? How many divisions does Facebook have? They don't have any. And as John rightly points out, they're getting all the weapons they want from the Chinese and from the Russians, who wrote the playbook, are the experts in wiping out opposition with no mercy. And the West just doesn't have the gumption or the political will nor the support to go in and help these people. So it's very, very nice for the British Prime Minister to do a lot of talking, but that's all that it is. And I don't think Assad is going to have any splaining to do. I think he's going to emerge successful on this. Unless, and we've said this before, I think the only way this situation could be fixed is if Turkey decides to take an active role in using its military to take out Assad. For any Western power to go in to Syria right now would be...
A Turkish-led invasion into Syria.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Followed up perhaps by states like Qatar, who are also calling for military intervention. Regis, we've talked about the importance of Russia's position on all of this. It has blocked action at the security level. Are we seeing the position softening at all, though? Because for the first time, we have heard Russia criticise Assad's regime about the humanitarian situation, about not letting Valery Amos, the UN humanitarian chief, in. Might this all change once the Russian election's out the way?
Maybe. I think they can actually have now that Bab al-Mandab and Homs are almost cleaned and that this is. I'm not saying this is over, because I think the nature of the conflict in Syria is much more of a like a civil war. There's definitely a fractured element in the Syrian society, and I've been repeating that over and over. And this is totally different than from Tunisia, Libya, even Egypt. It's a complete different nature that I would actually, the nature of the conflict would make me more think of the Sunni Shia fights that happened in Iraq, and we're seeing the uprising in Bab al-Mandab and Rastan and all these places. They are Sunni, the Sunni population. I mean, I'm not saying they're all Sunni in the Syrian, the Free Syrian Army, but there is definitely a leading element in that, and these old wounds within Islam has been reopened with that. So it makes it a different nature. Now, the Russian have had a very consistent presence in Syria. Syria has been shaped over the years by Russia, and like I've heard here today, it's true that the Russian, they gave the green light to the Syrian go, do like Grozny, basically. And now they find themselves in a position of being more of a power breaker over there. They can afford, Putin can afford to say, we have to, he's expecting to be elected in the first round in the election. And and Russia might be very well the solution in that. They're not going to give up Syria. They showed it at the United Nations. They've embarked the Chinese with them. And, they claim that they weren't consulted on Libya, and that the UN mandate on Libya has been going too far, and that they didn't approve that. So they could withdraw from this side of negotiation, but it is a Russian influence that is at stake. And now that this is over with the first phase of the fighting, then Russia could very well step in and actually try to mend fences in Syria.
All right. Well, they have stepped in once before. It didn't go too well, did it?
I was going to say that Mr. Obama may think twice about his reset and allowing Russia to run as ugly, as brutal, as Mrs. Clinton said, as despicable a show in Syria and come out the winner. He's running for president. America's forgotten about Russia as the Soviet Union. But any kind of Republican candidate worth half his salt, and remember the U.S. Congress exists and senators exist, who would be saying, you chickened out. You have a moral stain now to allow this to happen, and the Russians to call the shot. Obama couldn't handle that in an election year.
But you talked about the meat that's been taken out of all the UN resolutions that have been put forward. But what should have been done? What options would have been done? Arm the rebels when some are saying that would fuel a civil war?
The issue is, tell the Russians, call them into the court of world public opinion, stop your supply of arms, tell the Iranians that you are creating a world problem, demand a more direct and more, put it this way, coherent response from the Arab countries, and enact sanctions concerning Syria that are at the level of the Iranian sanctions. We haven't done anything.
Well, this is, to me, a little bit of wishful thinking when we think that within the past 10 years, the U.S. literally, by the invasion of Iraq, gave this place to Iran, increased the influence, and you expect Iran, and you expect Russia to give up their position, position that the U.S. actually, with the invasion of Iraq, gave them.
Just a moment, John. Let Regis finish the point there. Regis.
No, I'm saying that, we've, now we're worried about Iran, and there's a good. It's totally legitimate to worry about Iran. But what have we done? And we're going to tell the Russian stop supplying. Yes. We're going to take the Iranian to say stop. How are you going to do that?
Well, how you're going to do it is by showing. Put it this way: a little courage. The Russians are a false problem. The Russians have nothing to do with the Iran issue.
What about the Chinese? You're singling out the Russians. What about the Chinese? They've also blocked.
The Chinese are a real problem, but the Chinese aren't the problem in Syria. Chinese are not a dominant element in Syria.
What I'm saying is we have no choice.
Let's deal with the Russians.
Things have changed since the 20th century. This is the 21st century. America is not the superpower anymore in the world. Russia is within now. It's not the other. It's not the devil anymore. Russia is within now.
Would you like to look at the crowds in Moscow when you say Russia is not the devil?
Russia now in international relations is set with a group of countries that they are emerging and they are threatening the superpower position of the United States.
Well, I'm sorry.
So the United States cannot go there and say to Russia, get out of there and give orders. It's over that time.
You have a different analysis of the state of the world. Craig, let you pick up.
No, I find the discussion here illustrative of the larger reality. I just got back from a 2-week reporting trip to the States, speaking at some universities, and I'm here to tell you, no one I spoke to in the United States gives a fig about Syria. Most of them don't even know where it is.
That's not new.
And no, it's not new, but what I sensed in the United States over these 2 weeks is people are fed up in America with having to deal with the Arab world or the Muslim world. They're tired of it. They don't want to know about it anymore. I left there with the impression that 1 million people could die in Syria and the United States wouldn't care. And that is a shame. It's a shame. But and you can parse all the political things one could do to force this out to get rid of this thug, and he is a thug. But the American people don't care anymore. I compared it to Bosnia.
So Hillary Clinton in Tunisia last week, she wasn't speaking on behalf of the American people?
No, she was
she said
not.
He had blood on his hands?
No, she wasn't. She wasn't speaking for the American people. I spoke with at various universities, at a number of journalism schools, at a number of business schools on these issues.
Right.
And I compared it with what happened in Bosnia, which we all covered. We weren't going to let that happen in Bosnia, and Bill Clinton did something about it, and he managed it well. You don't see the passion here for this. You don't see it.
All right, let's move on to our next. Let's leave Syria aside. We're going to talk about Iran's first election in almost 3 years. There's not a great deal of choice. This contest pits hardline conservatives against each other. Reformists are either banned or are boycotting the poll altogether. Well, this is something of a popularity contest between supporters of the supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei and the president Mahmoud Ahmadinejad. It's also expected to set the stage ahead of the presidential vote next year. Now, Regis, Amnesty International says, rather unsurprisingly, this isn't a free election, this isn't democracy because the opposition can't take part.
No, it's another look at. We're going to look at Iran the way we look at it, without understanding anything to what's happening in this country. I'm not going to say right now. I'm going to tell you how it is. I don't have a clue either. It's what I've been. We're dealing with the Shiite world there. They have their particular way of doing. Iran is the political wing of Shiism, if we can, and of course this country has been strengthening, and to a point that now we have other countries around, and especially Sunni countries like Qatar or Saudi Arabia, who says, through Syria, this has to stop. The influence of Iran has to stop at one point. We've seen the Shia rising for over, a decade, and people are getting worried of that. And now this election, I don't know, they're just, I don't think they're going to change anything to the nature of the regime. Now, whether they should be strike or no strike, it's an ongoing debate, but I don't think at this point we have what it takes to go there and change anything. I'm
John,
very pessimistic on that.
All right, John, I had some Iranian specialists here with me last night. They were telling us that the regime, the Ayatollah in particular, is worried about a reformist movement in Iran. Do you think that opposition movement might ever rise up again as it did back in 2009?
I'm out of my area of competence in answering that question. What I can say in response, however, is how horrible it is to look back at the Obama administration's first year in office, when there was a real reformist movement, brave people on the street, and how this guy, President of the United States, sat on his hands and said, when there was a real opportunity to come to their help, to strengthen that movement, I'm not going to do anything. We're 4 years on almost, and he's in much worse difficulty in relation to Iran than he was on those afternoons. I can remember them well. What a sad story. And how much it is on the Obama administration's shoulders today that reformist group and those brave people are hiding, or just don't dare go outside.
And Craig, of course, this all takes place in the context. You've got the Israeli Prime Minister heading for talks with Obama. They will be talking solely about Iran, this amid fears that Israel will go ahead and strike on those nuclear targets.
It's very hard to have a rational discussion about an irrational people, or shall we say? And Iran has not been tagged a rogue state for nothing. Certainly, its leaders. And it's hard for me to think in anything but satirical terms when someone in this day and age, you're talking about the 21st century, but you're so right. Who on God's earth is going to use the name Supreme Leader to identify themselves in the 21st century? Well, yes, the other rogue state. But for you look, the stakes in Iran are so damn high, but it's hard not to write satire about them.
All right. Craig, I'm going to have to cut you off again, I'm afraid. We've run out of time for the first half. Don't go away. When we come back, we'll be talking about the US primaries and much more. Stay tuned.